At least over here.
We're live. We are live now. Hi, everyone. It is Carol C.C. Miller, your positivity trainer, peace activator, and global hugger, coming to you today with Tina and our guest Will on This Is Life. And join us in comments if you have any questions for Will or for Tina and I. Please ask there. Also, share where you're joining us from. Because as you know, if you joined before, I'm a big believer in hugs, so I will come and give you a virtual hug later. But today our topic is about Will Bowen's work, and I actually had the pleasure, it's been 2014, if you can believe it, where one of his books, I mean, he has several, but this book here, Happy Stories, I was one of the guests to write a story, and of course my story was about the power of hugs. And he invited all the authors to Kansas City where he lives, and we had this big, it was an amazing event, and we all got to autograph our books for the people there, and he had a limo bring us in. We felt like royalty, so it was a lot of fun to be part of this amazing book. But today we're really here to talk about his book, The Complaint-Free World. And how did you even get started with that? I mean, where did that idea come up from?
Total luck. I mean that sincerely. I was the minister of a Unity Church in Kansas City, Missouri, and had been there for 10 months. And I had a reputation for my secretary called it tchotchke gifts on Sundays. I like to give people little take-home things to help them remember what I talked about. And I was teaching Ed Wing Gaines' book, The Four Spiritual Laws of Prosperity. And Ed Wing talks about the idea that people say they want to be prosperous in all of its various forms. More money, better health, better relationships, feeling better in your body. That's how she defines prosperity. The problem is most people walk around griping and complaining about what they already have, you know. Wayne Dyer put it so well. He said, if you're unhappy with what you have, why would you want more? And so I did an entire talk on this concept, encouraging people to try and go, as Edwin suggested, 21 days in a row without complaining. Because scientists believe that it takes 21 days of doing the same thing over and over with a positive result to get a new habit. So I handed out, I wrote my talk, and then I wanted some way to help people remember what day they were on. I thought, how would you know how you're doing? And so I love mindfulness. I love little tricks that engage my body and my mind to make me aware. And I was taking a shower, which is where all good ideas come from.
Or the car.
Absolutely.
The car, exactly, yeah. Who needs to meditate? You can just drive a car. And so I had a clear vision of these Livestrong bracelets, which were very popular back then, the yellow ones that Lance Armstrong was doing. And so we ordered 250 or 500 from a local toy store. They just said spirit on them because they were spirit bracelets for schools. And we chose purple because purple is a spiritual color, we thought. And we handed out 250 that Sunday, and within 2 weeks we had requests for 9,000 bracelets. It literally, you've heard the term God thing. This was a God thing. I was just sitting there, and it just took off underneath my feet. And we had volunteers packing bracelets. We originally gave them away and just said, send us a donation. And that worked really well. People sent us about what we needed to keep going, but it just kept growing and growing and growing. We were in People Magazine, the Today Show, and then we were on Oprah. And being on Oprah, we had requests for 2 million bracelets in 24 hours, which just about crushed us because we had the money to buy the bracelets. We had literally bracelets floor to ceiling in our fellowship hall, which is a big room, seats 200 people. We had 2 million bracelets and no money to send it out. So we ultimately had to go back to and email everybody and say, we're very sorry. We know we'd send these to you and you'd make a donation, but we're going to have to charge. And we did. And we've been doing it now. We celebrated 10 years this last summer.
Wow.
And we estimate 11 million bracelets in 106 countries. We personally have sent out somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 million. We continue to send out 100,000 every year. We don't do any advertising or anything like that. And it's just word of mouth. It has continued and continued. And at the book, you asked me about the book. I haven't even mentioned the book. The book was simply because I started getting some sort of, I guess, people knew me or fame about complaining, and they started asking me questions. What is a complaint? Is it a complaint to talk to my therapist? Is it a complaint to talk to my child? Why do people complain? Why is complaining bad? Is complaining bad? And so I just delved into it and began to study complaining like crazy. I've read every book I found on complaining, and I found like 13, and I mentioned in like 4 of them. So I finally took on the moniker last year, the World Authority on Complaining. And so the book has just been phenomenally successful. It was the #1 best-selling book in all of China in 2009. And to date has sold close to 4 million copies in various editions around the world. So it just has been I didn't want to do this. I wanted to play drums for Kiss, but I ended up, and now what I do, as you know, Carol, is I travel the world and speak to organizations, a lot of schools, school districts, superintendents, and and also corporations, on how they can eradicate complaining from their environment, because it's toxic, it's terrible.
That's amazing.
Well, and I love that example. Go ahead, Tina.
No, I was just going to say, my first introduction to your work actually came a few years ago, and we were looking for speakers, and you were on my list, and I was just thinking of how powerful you would be in our schools, and so I think that invitation still stands. I would love to get you over to the Bahamas and into our schools, because what you're doing is absolutely amazing.
Well, let me see. Bahamas, school.
Think about it.
Yeah.
How long do I have to think about this? We need to.
It's a rough one for you.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Okay.
The struggles you do.
Can you see?
Heck, I love it. I want one of those shirts. Yay.
That's our website.
Love it.
The struggles you do there, Will, for your art is, you'll go to the Bahamas. So I appreciate that you will do that for the world.
You think that's bad? Last October, you ready? I had to go to Bali for 2 weeks to do teaching at a yoga studio. I did 2 weeks worth of teaching at a yoga studio on complaining and attitude and mindfulness. So while I was there, I got married. So
there you go.
I really can't complain. I mean, this is not the life that I would have chosen, but it's an amazing life, and I'm just humbled and just really, really grateful.
Well, and that's interesting when you say that, because a lot of people will, I'll ask, how are you? And they will say, I can't complain. And I usually come back to them, you can, you choose not to. Because we all have things in our lives, and I think your work is, I'm a positive person, and until I read your book and have met you since, it's amazing how much complaining you do without even realizing you're complaining. So it's probably been a year ago. I don't remember the last time you did it online where you went through the 21 days, and I'll ask you to talk about that process because it takes a while, and just to get past 1 or 2 days takes a bit of time. But I just remember the example you gave. I believe it was with you getting a car rental or something and having a bad customer service experience. And dealing with that customer service rep not being happy, wasn't complaining, but later going and talking about it and complaining about your experience. So, sometimes it's little nuances because you can be upset, you can still be disappointed that somebody's not giving you great customer service, but then when does it turn into complaining? When is it, I don't know that I want to call upset being healthy, but you know what I mean? When does it turn into a complaining rather than just an experience?
That's a very good question. That was one of the things that I sought to answer was if I go to work and my job is a customer service representative for Apple, if people call me all day with their problems with their MacBooks and their iPhones, etc., am I listening to complaints all day? No, I'm listening to problems. I'm listening to issues that need to be resolved. I'm possibly listening to feedback that we might need to take in. But no, they're not complaining to me. If they don't call the customer service person, but start complaining about their Apple, their iPhone, etc., that's complaining. The dictionary defines complain as to express grief, pain, or discontent. So by its very nature, a complaint must be spoken. The dictionary says a complaint must be spoken to express grief, pain, or discontent. And so when we are speaking to people, if we're speaking to someone who can resolve our issue, we're not complaining. One of the things I always say when I do speaking events is that I am not here to tell you to shut up and suck up what the world's sending your way. I'm not asking you to be a doormat. I'm telling you that most people already are being doormats, because what they do is, if they're having problems at work, they go home and complain to their spouse. And if they're having trouble with their spouse, they go home and complain or rather they go to work and complain about their spouse at work. And so you get this whole, I'm talking about it all the time, but it doesn't get any better. And so my invitation is always, stop being a doormat, start addressing the issues and speak directly and only to the people who can resolve.
Can I ask a question?
Is that why I'm here?
So, what you're saying is really, it resonates with me. After I experienced the loss of my daughter, I had to become very conscious of my words, conscious of my thoughts. And that was actually something that was a part of it. I was aware of how I was sharing my story. Was I going to complain about it? Was I going to speak it in a way that was, looking at the negative, or was I going to speak from a place of I am blessed. I had an amazing daughter that came into this life, and she has taught me, and she's helped me to grow. And so I get what you're saying, and it was for me very helpful to become conscious. But what can you say to someone who has been through extreme pain, who's been through what some of us could never even possibly imagine? How does one who is constantly being broken down, how do you tell them not to complain? What are some things that you can do to help them?
First of all, I honor your loss, and I celebrate life. And I cannot imagine what that would be like. Over the decades, more than a decade that we've been sending out complaint-free bracelets, I can think of probably 20, 25 times when people have contacted us specifically to get bracelets to hand out at funerals and life celebrations, because the person who left this world was a very positive person, and they thought it would be a good way to celebrate that, or they thought that they didn't want people to focus on the hardship of this person leaving this world, etc. They wanted to celebrate the blessing that was that person. So I don't really have any suggestions. I don't think that a person who is going through such an enormous loss, part of the grieving process is sharing all of the pain that you're in. And so I would never suggest that a person stifle themselves through that. Having served as a church minister for 5 years, I was with a lot of people through those very same circumstances. And one of the things I think that helped sometimes was to remember the struggles and the pain of other people. And to realize, as Mick Jagger says, or whoever said, nobody gets out of here alive. I mean, I think that each of us has a story, every one of us. That if I could tell you my story, you would cry and you would say, wow, he's had it rough. And the same is true for you. Yeah. And so I think that it's that idea I was reading about of through our shared humanity, through our understanding that we are all in pain. The old saying of be kind because everyone you speak to is carrying a heavy load. when you're going through those heavy load times, Yeah. Remember that it actually could be worse. I'm going to give you an example, and it may be too much, but I was called one time when I was a minister of the church to do a funeral, as I often was, from someone who used to come to the church. They may have attended 3 or 4 times, but in their mind, that was their church. I was their minister. They died. I did their funeral. And so this elderly woman died, and I was contacted by her son and her daughter, who flew into town, and we met to do the funeral. The family was so distraught over losing the mother and kept talking about that there could be nothing worse. There could be nothing worse. And I don't believe that we have a God that would do anything so capricious, but I do believe in irony. And that night, the daughter passed away, and I ended up doing a funeral, a double funeral. So none of that is to mitigate your loss or anyone else's. I just do find that it helps to remind ourselves. It's like when I tore the cartilage in my knee, I was in the emergency room, and there was a woman in the next bed, and she had torn it in both knees. And all I could think of was,
yeah. What you're saying is so true. And Carol knows, and we've talked about it on the other shows, but for me, going to Rwanda and spending time with genocide victims and perpetrators of genocide and being witness to their stories helped me to know that, I wasn't alone in my grief, but yes, there are people who experience far worse than I could ever begin to imagine. But like you said, I think it's vitally important that we do express. And what I've learned is how we express can change our life. It can shift everything, and it can move us through, from pain to purpose if we choose to change our perspective and express it in a way that comes perhaps from a place of gratitude, kindness and compassion versus complaining. So, wow, thank you.
Yeah.
There's an essence in complaining. Eckhart Tolle put it so well. He said, there is no ego in telling the waiter that your soup is cold and needs to be heated up if you stick to the facts, which are always neutral. How dare you serve me cold soup? That's complaining. That's what he said. And there is an underlying current. People only complain for 5 reasons, and I'd love to share that with your audience at some point. But there's an underlying current of all complaining of how dare this happen to me. Now, what is the root of how dare this happen to me? If you look at it, it's anger. What is anger? Anger is a lack of acceptance of what is. There are people who lose people, and over the years, as they say, there's a new normal. There's not you don't go back to normal, there's a new normal. And yet, you develop that appreciation, and the people who suffer are the ones who have the how dare this happen to me. And there are people who are walking around with how dare this happen to me because their phone didn't work this morning. Or whatever. There is no lack of things to complain about. I was reading the other day that nowadays a phrase that people use today more than at any other time in history is, I'm too busy. I'm too busy. I'm too busy. I'm too busy. Even though we adjust our own calendars. Well, what does that mean? I'm too busy is a way of saying I'm important. It's one of the 5 reasons people complain, which is to inspire envy. You complain, I'm too busy. Oh my God, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. And you think in your mind, people are going to go, wow, she's important. And it's really nothing more than people complain to get social needs met. That's, if I could, put everything I've learned in 10 years into one sentence, it's that people complain to get their social needs met. I lost Carol on my screen here. Is she still there?
I think she's still there. I keep losing her back. I think she'll come back. Don't worry, keep going.
Do we have any questions or comments from people that we need to address on here at this point?
Questions, anyone?
I just was wanting somebody who's motivated. What would you like to talk about, Carol?
Can she hear us?
Carol, can you hear us?
I'm sure she'll figure it out, Will. I have another question, if that's okay.
Sure.
There was a time, and I tend to go in and out of these times where something becomes habit. And I remember when people would say, "How are you?" And out of habit, I don't know why, but I would always say, "Oh, tired." And I wasn't tired, but I would just say it. And just the very expression of that made me tired. And so often I think we speak things out of habit. And that's why I love the bracelet idea, because there's something tangible that you can look at, and it makes you conscious of what it is you're saying, and you can do what you need to do to change that. But
there was a story, if I could share it with you, a study done recently, and in this particular study, they took a group of college students and they had them come into a room, and then they had them put check marks by words, and the words were energetic, happy, youthful. They were all related to being youthful, looking forward to the future, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then they videotaped them. They paid them $5, and they videotaped them walking out the room and down the hall. They then brought in another group, and they had them check off boxes. They said aching joints, old, feeble, etc. Okay? They paid them the $5, videotaped them walking down the hall. These were random groups of 20 college students. What do you think happened with the second group? They walked at a slower pace. They seemed more frail. They seemed more feeble. There was definitely a change in them, and all they had done was put that little check mark by those things. So yes, you're absolutely right. I have a tendency when people ask me, "How you doing?" I say, "Great." Yeah. And I find that that can almost be a little over the top for some people. And the truth is, I think for me, really good is where I'd like to hover. So that's kind of what I tend to say. I'm doing really good. The other one is, and I did this for a very long time, and I strongly recommend it, is somebody says, "How you doing?" Happy.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. I've been saying that more and more lately, but I also, I made a practice of saying, again, what's the truth? And, just, I'm blessed, or I'm grateful, and I find that when you consciously, try not to speak those words that are, complaining, and you insert them with words that are even those high energy words that, life is beautiful, life is brilliant. It's a truth. And if you can get to that place more and more often in your day, speaking that, doesn't it raise your energy? It makes you feel good. And you can say that, "I'm happy. I feel really good." Yeah.
The other thing is it's a pattern breaker, as Tony Robbins would say, because one of the first things you learn, like when I was in high school, I learned French. Bonjour, comment ça va? Ça va bien, merci.
Yes.
Hello, how are you? I am fine, thank you. I mean, we're trapped in that exchange, and when you can break the pattern and say, "I'm great," or "I'm good," or "I'm happy," or "I'm fresh as a flower," or whatever, it establishes a new paradigm in the relationship or the connection.
Yeah, agreed. I want to check, Will, because Carol isn't here, and I'm worried that we're frozen. Is there anyone out there that can see us? Are we live? Are we actually?
I am seeing. It says that 43 people are with us.
Okay.
And we are live.
Can someone who's seeing us now say whether? Yeah, good. Okay, great. So I'm not sure what Carol is, but.
Hello, Elizabeth Jones. Okay, you see.
Okay. Yeah. So.
With Carol, is it okay if I share with you I want to share the 5 reasons people complain?
Let's do that, because that's vitally important. Here's Carol again. Carol, are you there?
I am. Yes, please share. I'm glad that you guys were still going.
We have been. We missed you.
I missed you guys.
Here's the thing. I tried to figure out, because people were always asking me, because I've discovered that complaining is damaging, and if you do the research, you'll find this out. Damaging to our health, it's damaging to our relationships, it's destructive to our careers. It's one of the number one reasons people get fired is they complain too much. As far as careers go, 1 out of 11 people quit their jobs because they don't want to deal with complaining coworkers. Mm-hmm. So I tried to find out why people complain. I met a wonderful woman. Her name is Dr. Robin Kowalski. She's in the psychology department at the University of Clemson. We've become very good friends. She wrote her doctoral thesis on complaining. So I read it, and it was a doctoral thesis. It was just, However, what I did isolate from it was that she had figured out 5 reasons that people complain. The 5 reasons, and as I studied it, looked at it, I really liked it. And so I created the acronym to sort of help me and everybody else remember it. It's very easy. It's GRIPE. G-R-I-P-E. People complain to you. G, get attention. Number 1 reason people complain, by far, we are social animals. We want to talk to other people. It's not a want, it's a need. We need to connect with other people. And in our society, it is acceptable and even encouraged to complain about the Kansas City Royals game last night, or the weather that just happened, or what President Trump is doing, or what the Democrats are doing to stop President Trump. Whatever it is, it's almost like an icebreaker. It's why when we're in an elevator, it's so uncomfortable, when you're with somebody you don't know, until somebody complains. And then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, that's right, So that's the main reason. That's the number 1 reason. The G in GRIPE stands for get attention. The R in GRIPE, and actually the R and the E are twin sisters. The R stands for remove responsibility. Now here's what I mean by that. Let's say Carol and I are working together, and it's a beautiful day in Chicago, and she wants to go out and hang out by the lake, and I want her to stay and work, and I want her to crunch a bunch of numbers, etc. And she's hoping to sneak out of there, so I say, Carol, you know what, I'd like to have this by 5 o'clock today. And Carol says, the internet's been running really slow, and I don't trust it. I don't think it's going to pull up. And the other thing is marketing hasn't gotten me everything that I need to fully pull these together. And they're not good about answering their phones this late on a Friday afternoon. So, you know what? I'd be happy. How about I do it for you and have it to you Monday afternoon? So you see what she's doing? Carol doesn't want to do this. She wants off the hook. That's always the thing with removed responsibility. I want off the hook. Kids are great at this. And so what they'll do is they'll complain about everything surrounding their circumstance. And as a result, hopefully you'll let them off the hook. So that's the R in GRIPE. The G is get attention. The R is remove responsibility. The I stands for inspire envy. Inspire envy. Now, in our culture, most Western societies, and certainly the Eastern societies, one of the things that surprised me in China was that they have no Chinese superheroes. There's no such thing. America has superheroes because America is all about the individual rising above everybody else. In China, that is considered a mark of shame. So you would never have a superhero. Now, in this, because we want to get people to look up to us, to admire us. So what do? We don't come up and say, hey, Carol, check out the new Tesla I just bought. No, which, by the way, I didn't. But we say something like, Carol, when you buy a Tesla, you would think that the key would fit better in your pocket. Or, Carol, when you spend $78,000 on a Tesla, you'd think that the color would match exactly what you need. When you spend $80,000 on a Tesla, doggone it, don't you think that it should greet you by name when you get in the vehicle? Whatever, I'm making these up. But that is to inspire envy. It's a way for me to tell you that not only do I have a Tesla, but I spent $80,000 on it. I have a friend who spent $40,000 on a boat. Believe me, he does this exact same thing. Right. So that's the I. The G is get attention. The R is remove responsibility. The I is inspire envy. The P is power. This is the second most common. If G is get attention, power is by far the second most. We use complaining to build alliances. the best way to get people on your side, and Carol and I both know this, Carol and I are building positive movements, and Carol and I have both been very fortunate in this. But if you're building a negative movement, it's easier, because all you got to do is find the people that agree with you and are, excuse my language, pissed off about the same thing you are. And so complaining is used to build alliances. It's used in families. It's used at work. If you've got a group of salesmen that don't want to do the new report that the boss is telling them to do, the salesmen typically don't go and speak directly to the boss. What they do is they'll speak to each other, and they'll just sort of not turn in their reports or not fill them out right, or maybe all of them will go and confront the boss, him or her, and say they're not going to do it. So that's power. You see it in the United States every 4 years. You cannot have a political campaign without complaining. Go through Bernie Sanders. Go through Donald Trump. Go through Hillary Clinton. You have to be against something so that you attract the people who are similar against you. And then, so let me go through them again, because I always want people to remember them. And the reason I want people to remember these is because they'll waste their time trying to resolve a non-issue when really the person just wants to get attention. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So the G is get attention, the R is remove responsibility, the I is inspire envy, and the P is power, and the E is excuse poor performance. That's just the past tense version of remove responsibility. So, same scenario. I give Carol something to do on a Friday afternoon, ask Carol to do it, 5 o'clock, it's not done. Monday morning, not done. I go to Carol's desk. She gives me the excuses, but as to all the reasons, I tried, I called, they wouldn't call me back. You know how terrible shipping is. They never get you anything in time. You know, Mars is in retrograde. You can't expect whatever. So that's excuse poor performance. And after 10 years now of delivering that message, I have not found an additional reason that I would consider complaining that doesn't fall under one of those 5 categories.
Those are amazing tips to work with. And I don't know if you guys answered this while I was having internet issues that I will not complain about. But Beverly was asking, and we were talking about with the loss of a child and things. She had a child who, it's the 12th anniversary of her 16-year-old son being found dead. And she was wondering how to not complain about that. And I think we kind of covered a little bit. But also, Beverly, last week I spoke with Sunny Dawn Johnston, and we talked specifically about moving through loss. So that might be one you want to look up. But Will, do you have any help with her on how to move out of that complaining stage of what I'm assuming it's why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to my son?
Why did it happen?
I'm just assuming that is something that she may be complaining about, but
again, yeah, and maybe I think we sort of covered it in that
okay.
In that when we're attached to why, when we're attached to how dare this happen to me, we're in anger, we're unwilling to move beyond the situation, or incapable. I'm not saying we choose not to necessarily. Sometimes we have blocks. Thomas Ashley Ferron said something wonderful. He said, obstacles defend themselves. And I love that. Obstacles defend themselves. If our goal is to have a more normalized life and not be complaining about the child passing. And again, there's a difference in sharing with people that a huge event happened to you 12 years ago and being angry about it and resentful about it. The latter is complaining. The former is normal.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. And I have yet to read the book. It has just come out, but oh my goodness, I can't think of the woman who wrote it, but she just wrote, she is a CEO for Facebook, and she wrote a book called Plan B. And she lost her husband 2 years ago from a tragic accident. So plan A was to live happily ever after raising her kids with him. So she had to figure out what plan B was because she no longer could choose plan A. She could not bring him back. So how could she go forward living a happier life without him and helping her kids through it? So it sounds like it's a really powerful book from what I've heard, but I've not read it. It's just come out. So that might be something to look up. So while I was gone, did you talk about your 21-day challenge and recommendations for people how to start that and to try it in their own lives? And how long did it take you to get to that 21 days?
Well, I've done it twice. And if people want to go to willbowenvideo.com, one of the videos there is I took a daily selfie of me wherever I was, and it was day one. That is typical. So the idea is you put the bracelet on either wrist, and every time you catch yourself complaining, not other people, every time you catch yourself complaining, it's about being mindful of yourself. You take it off your wrist and you switch it all the way to the other wrist, and then you wear it on that wrist until you complain again. Not if, when you complain again. And then you take it off that wrist and you move it back to this wrist. And every time you move it, you're starting back over on day one. And the average person takes 4 to 8 months. That's average to go 21 days. I was talking to somebody yesterday who's at over a year now. But it's not like you hit 21 days and you become a complaint-free person and all of a sudden your life gets great. Your life starts getting great as you stay with this, little by little by little by little, because you're not putting that negativity out in the world, and the world isn't reflecting it back to you. So it goes for everybody. You can be on day one for a month and a half. People are like, I had to change my bracelet 7 times. And I'm like, well, the average person complains 15 to 30 times a day. So you're already 50% better than they are. So it's just, I think, less than, if we've sent out 11 million bracelets or caused to distribute 11 million bracelets, only about 5,000 people have actually made the 21 days. And I think it's because most people put this thing on, and everybody gets excited when you're going to do something new.
Yeah.
I've actually shown that it's called commitment endorphins. You make a commitment at New Year's Eve, and you're very excited. And then the next morning you wake up and you go, what was I thinking? Because I've actually got to be conscious. And I think that what most people do is they start switching it, and then they're like, oh, gosh, I complain a lot. And you do. The average person 15 to 30 times a day. The thing is, you just want to make it a game. You don't want to get mad at yourself and sort it. You just do it. And I've been interviewed by a lot of people. I've done probably 600-700 interviews. And people have said, so what's the best way to quit complaining? And honestly, I've never found anything that works anywhere near as well as this, because it's a slow, mindful change over time that you make yourself. The thing is, everybody around you begins to change as well, because you can't meet with everybody at lunch at work, which is what most people do, Teachers Lounge or hair salon. I have a good friend who has a complaint-free hair salon, and it's just amazing what he's done there by making it a complaint-free hair salon. But what he notices is that people come in and they sit in the break room and they complain about the very customers they just took care of. So as you become a complaint-free person, you find you really have little to say to people like that. And they have little to say to you. And sometimes they'll begin to speak more positively to you, or you'll begin to attract more positive people, because like attracts like.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting, because that's what I hear all the time from being positive. And I have an organization called Positive Focus. I train and teach people positivity, but guess what? I have negative thoughts. And so it really is, I consciously work on being positive. And because I do it all day long, it's certainly an easier thing for me than other people, but it does not remotely mean that I don't have any negative thoughts that cross my mind. And when I've tried, I've not made 21 days. When I've tried it, it was interesting, because I first found it's like wow, did I hear everybody else's complaining even louder? It's like, because now I'm focused on complaining. It's like, whoa, I didn't know that person complained so much. And then you hear yourself on what you say that you're complaining about. So it really is, it's about being an awareness of what you're saying and what you're thinking and what you're doing. And then you can make changes from there. So it's really, really powerful. Have you tried it, Tina?
Yeah, I mean, I never tried it with the bracelets, but I can just speak from my experience of, after my loss. And, you're obviously, I mean, it takes years and years and years for some of those changes to actually be implemented and to start working in your life. But what I found was important for me was to be very gentle on myself as well. That, like, say, for example, with regards to my daughter's death, it was due to medical negligence. And so I found that every time I wanted to go to that negative place, I could say something like, it's unacceptable what happened. I'm being assertive, but I always say something positive after that. It's unacceptable what happened to my daughter, Mia, but I'm learning how to be courageous. And I'm learning how to find beauty in the pain. And I'm learning each and every day to see the blessings within the most difficult challenges of my life. And I just find that if you are going to say something that's either negative, or at least try to pull something positive. And I say, with every negative thought that would come into my mind, I'd quickly try to bring 2 or more positive thoughts. And by doing that, the energy of that would help create the necessary shifts. And that's what helped me. Yeah. But I like the bracelet idea. I think that having something tangible, it's something that's on you, that's where you become more conscious, and your focus is more, how do you say it? It's just more aware. And so I like that.
Thank you. Yeah, and the other thing that, again, I didn't plan all this, it just sort of happened. The other thing that the bracelet does is that there is never positive change, or that human beings don't change in a vacuum. We need social influences to change. If you've read my book, I lost 100 pounds when I was 19, and I went to Weight Watchers because I had people sharing with me. And when you're wearing the bracelet, that's why we don't send out one bracelet anymore. We send 10 bracelets anywhere in the world for $9.97. That includes all the shipping and everything. But what we find is people will put on their bracelet, and then other people put on their bracelet, and it becomes a challenge. It becomes my sister and I are doing this, my brother and I are doing this, and that's why we feel like it's been so successful, is that social nature that's involved.
Why do you think it's so important? I was reading on your site, and I know, but I'd love for you to explain this to our audiences, but why was it so important in churches, in places of worship, in synagogues? Tell me about that.
Well, if those of you who've read my book, or have read the original and then the updated version of my book, it all started in my church as a result of me doing the Complaint-Free World and being on Oprah and everything like that. The Complaint-Free World gave that church $117,000 in 1 year. We also doubled the size and paid half the mortgage down. And they still threw me out, just like many churches do with many ministers. I didn't do, it's not, it probably makes you wonder what happened. It's in the book. But that church had actually run 3 previous ministers off, and from what I hear, they're working on that one now. Yeah. And I forgot your question. I got off on the church thing.
I'm just curious to know why you think.
Why churches?
Why in church is it so important? Why, spiritually? Let's speak about spiritually. Why is it important not to complain?
If you think about it, first of all, I wanted to make this point, and that is that what surprised me about being a minister, how much people complain, how much dissension there is, how much people will gripe about anything and everything. And every minister I know says the same thing. They say that churches are not a haven for saints. It's a playground for sinners. It's a place for people with problems and issues to get together, have some power, and play those problems and issues out. So people are often really surprised that this started in a church. I will tell you, though, that what made this huge around the world was not being on Oprah. It was all the ministers around the world who had done seminar series, or sermon series, rather. And we actually have complaint-free programs for ministers, churches, schools, businesses, all can be downloaded. But ministers who have gotten the bracelets, we give discounts to churches and schools, handed it out. I mean, you just don't imagine, if you want to talk about a spiritual concept, to me, not complaining is a mark of spiritual maturity. Spiritual maturity, if you look at it from a Buddhist standpoint, my wife considers herself a Hindu. I had once considered myself Christian. I now look at all different aspects of God. It's always trusting and believing that everything is okay as it is and on its way to ideally being better. So why would you be griping and complaining? You know, if you look at the book of Genesis, you know, at the end of the sixth day, God said everything he created was very good. So that doesn't mean that there aren't wasps that sting you and you don't lose children and that there aren't terrible issues in the world. But ultimately, there are blessings. And the more we talk about the negative things, the more we stir them up in our own heads. That's one of the things that I've gotten the most about complaining, is that we're just stirring it up in our own heads.
So true.
Yeah.
And complaining implies lack of, doesn't it? It's something isn't right. There's not enough. And I think what I loved about what you had said, you know, about the spiritual aspect of it, is that we, you know, when actually I'll go to Louise Hay's affirmation, because that helped me so much. All is well in my world, yes. Right? And when you speak that, when you feel that, when you say that, truly, everything does feel well. But the minute you complain and you imply that there's a lack of something, this isn't right, or that isn't right, or you know, you're attracting more and more of that into your life and into your being, everything. And so, if there's anything that you could leave with our audiences today, what would be the most important thing that you have learned on this journey, and how has not complaining changed your life?
Oh my gosh. Well, how has not complaining changed my life? First of all, as I said, I live an amazing life, getting to spread the message. But more importantly than that, my interactions with waitresses are nicer. My interactions with customer service people are nicer. My wife tells me I'm just a much more likable guy. Everybody likes me. My daughters and I get along great. My son-in-law and my son gets along great with me. It just is. We have issues? Yeah. Do I have problems right now? Yeah. One of the things I always do when I speak is I say, raise your hand if you're having a problem right now. I see a serious problem, and everyone always raises their hand, always. Mm-hmm. We have those things, but it has just dramatically changed my life. But I think the thing that I would like to leave your audience with is that the story I always love to tell when I speak. Two construction workers sit down for lunch, and the first one opens his lunchbox, and he looks in and he goes, "You got to be kidding me." And his buddy says, "What's the matter?" He says, "I got a meatloaf sandwich for lunch." And he goes, "I hate meatloaf." And his buddy doesn't say anything beyond that, so they just sit there quietly eating. The next day, same two guys meet. First guy goes, "Again? 2 days in a row, a meatloaf sandwich?" His buddy doesn't say anything. Third day, guy opens his lunchbox. This time he's off the charts. He crushes the sandwich in his hand. And he says, day in and day out, 3 days in a row, meatloaf sandwich after meatloaf sandwich. I want something else. And his buddy can't take it anymore. He goes, "Dude, ask your wife to make you something else." And the guy goes, "I make my own lunch." That's the truth of who we are. We make our lunch. if we go through the day saying that life is terrible, all I have is problems, no one respects me, this pains me, the government is doing this, etc., and that's what we talk about, we will live in that world. We perpetuate that world by focusing on it. Complainers are actually hurting our planet. They need to begin to speak about what is good, what is real, what is joyous, what is possible, and that will begin to explain. So I invite your listeners to just remember, every day you make your own version.
Yeah, it's so true. And thank you for saying that. And I'm glad that we are ending with that, because it's true. How do we want our world to look? What is it that we want in our families, in our communities? And if we can, each and every one of us, be more conscious of the words we speak and the ways in which we think, the ways in which we act, and we come from a place of abundance and what is working and what is wonderful and amazing and beautiful. Imagine how beautiful our lives could be, you know. And so with that, I don't know where Carol is, and hopefully our audiences. Actually, do any of the audiences have any questions before we?
Yeah, because the questions will pop up. I'm going to put my glasses on.
Yeah, questions are always good.
And I will also say you can go. I will say be sure and go to my web address, willbowen.com, WILLBOWEN.com. We've got lots of videos and free stuff you can download. One of the things you can do is take a test to find out whether you're a positive or negative person. I actually worked with the people who developed this test for psychiatrists, and I'm the first person they've ever given the rights to use this, to allow people to use it generically.
I think that's a great place to start, isn't it? Go to your site right now, take the test, see where you're at, and make that commitment today. You know, just let's do that. All of us who are watching, you know, me, who I'm here today, I'm thinking in my mind, okay, I'm going to do this too. I'm going to start to change.
Ellen says, thanks so much. What we speak brings about.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're seeing the whole question. I'm not seeing it.
I think we're at a little technically disadvantaged at this point.
Yeah. Carol can see the whole full question, but we can't. And unfortunately, Carol's not here. Yeah. All right. Well, I say we do a call to action. As we said, go to your site. Tell us your site. What's
WillBowen.com. WILLBOWEN.com.
Okay.
Just go there and check out all the free stuff.
Yeah. And there's lots of great videos. I've been through them, and you are such an inspiration. And I'm so grateful that you're here, and I'm so grateful that you happened upon this whole idea and this vision that you had for it, because that's how it happens. We sometimes don't know what our path will be and what it is we're coming into this life to do. And I most certainly can attest to that. And sometimes it's just one day we wake up and there's one little thing that someone says that triggers us to make a change in our life, or inspires us, as Carol would prefer that I say, that just moves us. And with that, lives are changed, and you are changing lives each and every day. And so I'm grateful. I know our audiences are grateful. Thank you so much for being on the show. And I speak for Carol too. And I say so.
I hold a vision of us figuring out a way for me to come there and speak at your school.
Let's make that happen. I'm serious about that. We could use some shift and change in our own communities here, and we've got some schools that would welcome you with open arms. And so let's discuss that, make that happen. And anyone else,
dozens of schools and school districts every year. In fact, I just booked one this morning. So send me an email and we can talk about it. Will and
anyone else out there that's a part of a church or a school that wants to get in touch with you, they can do that, right?
That's absolutely right. WillBowen.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. It's been wonderful having you here. Blessings, everyone.
Thanks.
Let's go out there and make a difference in our lives and in the lives of others with who we are and all that we can be. Blessings. Bye.
Okay, well, I'm going to guess it's over and that my internet connection kept kicking me out. So I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Will. And I'm going to personally ask him to come back at another time that I have better internet connection, because his work is so powerful and I'd like to have talked to him a little bit more myself. But I know that he and Tina shared some great information with you, and hopefully they both shared what they're up to next. I will check with Will and get some links to provide for you as well. And for me, I'm going to be heading to Santa Fe next week for the Mike Dooley Train the Trainer conference and I'll be speaking on Friday, a week from today, and we'll be doing global free hugs from there. So as you know, we're out next weekend, May 6th through the 7th, offering free hugs around the world just to spread a little kindness and to remind people that they matter. I'll put the link in for that as well to be able to connect you with us, and hope you will join us sharing some kindness, whether you hug your family, your friends, your loved ones, or a stranger on the street. Thank you so much for being part of the Positive Focus community. Thank you for putting up with my fun internet experience today that I'm not going to complain about. And we will talk very soon. I will be back tomorrow. I'm not sure yet what the topic will be, but we'll come up with something to help heighten your celebrations and lessen your sorrows through a positive focus. So remember, you matter. You matter to me, you matter to the world, and most importantly, you matter to you. We'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.